Fellow comrades of the world's greatest movement, in our group we discussed privatization, how the bourgeois capitalists are getting their hands deep in our pockets of the ordinary working man. Our colleague from the ERT discussed how the government sent armed police to remove union workers from the cameras. And still, our brothers and sisters, they won. For 9 months, they produced TV and radio without pay. For 9 months, the Troika tried to shut down the ERT. But you know what? Don't fuck with the union, because it's a fight you can't win. Our strength in number is equal to no other force, and that is why the union at the ERT won. The struggle is still hard, and it's always been hard for the workers and for the movement against privatization, against inequality. But our solidarity is stronger than anything else. So how can we win this battle? How can we win the struggle against the inequality, against the privatization? We will spread the word. We are millions and millions and millions of people throughout the world. We will use the words, we will find the right phrases. That is how we will win everyone's hearts and everyone's minds, except from those who tried to harm us. Because you know what? My grandmother, she's not for sale. She's not a good. That is the type of thing we should say to people to understand how it works. And also, our brother from the ERT union told us about the Solidarity Fund. They have these vouchers that sell out in Athens that you can buy and get food. And we should try to buy some of those if we can get it tonight. Because we want to show our solidarity to our union brothers and sisters here in Athens, here in Greece. And that is what we discussed. Thank you.
My name's Jenny and I'm from the UK. Our group was looking at internships and apprenticeships. I think we probably focus more on internships, but hopefully what I'm going to say will have some meaning for apprenticeships as well. So first of all, we thought about what makes a good internship. So we talked about the fact that internships should be paid, and they should be paid enough that the people doing the internships can live sort of independently while they're doing the internship. We said that internships should have a structured training program so that someone that goes to do an internship knows what they're meant to be achieving while they're doing the internship, and it means that it can also be reviewed as they go along to make sure that they are getting the most out of their time with an employer. We talked about the importance of internships being time limited, that employers shouldn't be able to keep someone on as an intern for kind of years and years, also because that's not good for that individual, but also to enable other people to join as an intern with that employer. We said that when someone completes an internship, they should get some kind of a reference at the end of the internship, but also if there's not a guaranteed job with that employer, that the employer gives them some kind of careers advice so that when they go out applying for jobs in the industry, they get some sort of advice from an employer. We said that the work that an intern should do should be varied and it should be interesting. We also said that ideally we would hope that interns would get some kind of benefits. That could be something like subsidised travel, or maybe the employer could give them an interest-free loan to help them pay for travel costs if they're in a city where it's expensive. We then looked at why employers, what the incentives are for employers to have interns, and also what the incentives are for an individual to do an internship. and we looked at the lists we made to see if there were any comparisons. The comparisons that we saw were that for an individual, doing an internship can be the foot in the door. So if you want to get into a particular type of industry, particular type of work, it can help you to get in there. And for employers taking on interns, it helps them to mould people that are, potentially their future staff. Doing an internship, looks good on your CV, particularly if you're doing it for a well-known employer. And likewise for the employer, it's good for their corporate social responsibility image to show that they're taking on internships and training people. We also talked about flexibility, that actually doing an internship might suit someone because maybe they're not certain of what it is that they want to do for their job, or they're just not ready at that time to have a permanent job. And obviously there's flexibility for the employer that, they're training someone, but the person isn't a kind of a permanent member of their staff. So then we started to think about if we want to get to a position where all internships tick all the boxes for our criteria of what makes a good internship, how we would go about getting that change. So first of all, we talked about changing legislation. So we said that there should be limits on the number of internships for a certain employer, and the frequency, so that they can't just have intern after intern, so that they never have to employ someone to do the job. And we also talked about employers being approved to have interns, because actually not every workplace is suited for internships, and that would hopefully stop people advertising for an intern just so that it's cheap labour, rather than they're actually training someone to get a job. We talked about possibly having a system of sanctions to make sure that employers, were training someone and not just exploiting someone for cheap labour. We talked about having a system of inspections. We talked about having an external auditing body, and we also talked about having kind of mystery shoppers, so interns that, go and do an internship and report back on how it was and how the employer treated them. We talked about the fact that, as well as maybe getting a reference, that actually there could be a standardised certificate that people get to show that they've completed a training programme with that employer, and that would be the same for all employers. So rather than just saying on your CV, I did a 2-month internship with an employer, you've actually got something to show that you completed a training programme. We said that we wanted internships to be paid, so we would obviously lobby that all internships should be paid. And this is where we had a bit of a debate in our group. We all agreed that the wage should be a living wage so that people can live independently, so that it's not just people that have the support of their parents who can afford to pay for them to, live somewhere while they're doing an internship. But there was slight disagreement over how much that should be. So colleagues from France believe that interns should be paid the same as someone doing the equivalent job. The debate was around the fact that obviously the problem that might cause is that what is the incentive then for an employer to take on an intern? They could just advertise for a member of staff. We didn't have enough time to kind of go into loads of detail, but the position we got to is that if we've got certain employers who have been approved to take on interns, we generally agreed that interns have done some form of higher education already. The jobs that they're going into as interns are probably not going to be minimum wage, and so actually that they might not get paid as much as someone doing an equivalent job in the workplace, but that they would actually still get paid enough to live on just because of the type of work they were going into. So that was the area that we did have a bit of difficulty, and that would be something that we would have to drill down into later. So We then looked at what we would want employers to do. And so that would be having a structured training program, having a system of appraisal, reviewing, evaluating the training program as the internee developed. We talked about having an official mentor in the workplace, so that someone, it's actually their role. Quite often people, they're supposed to get support from, say, their line manager, and the line manager doesn't give them that support, and so they're not getting any kind of mentoring or coaching. And at the end of the internship, not only should they be reviewing and evaluating the internship with the person doing the internship, but also just to make sure that their program works, that they're getting something out of it, that the internee is getting something out of it, and that it's working. So then we talked about what unions could do, and we said that we would want to obviously encourage interns to join a union. We would try and get interns to become reps. You could maybe have reduced or free membership for interns. I've actually missed one part from the legislation, which was we talked about making sure that internees are covered by collective agreements we have with employers. And part of that would be that they have a contract of employment, and we would make that law that internees had to have a contract of employment. What we could do as unions is help employers to write up a good contract. And obviously we could advise people who are going to do internships on the content before they sign them. We talked about having a database as well of, so our mystery shopper interns would be feeding back who are good employers, who are bad employers. We would keep a database of that information, but also with obviously information when you do an internship, this is what you should expect, and you shouldn't be asked to just make the coffee, for example. I think that's probably everything, so thank you.